Football on Off the Ball.
With Paddy Power's Save Our Game. Donating at least 100,000 to Irish football via England goals this summer. Gamble responsibly. Gamblingcare.ie.
A very good morning to you. Welcome along to yet another episode of the Euro 2020 show here on Off the Ball. Shane Hannon with you throughout the duration of the European Championships tournament as it progresses. And we're live this morning on this Tuesday morning in all the usual places as well. On OTB Sports Radio, which is on the OTB Sports app. You can download that for free right now in the App Store and indeed the Play Store. And we're live on video as well as usual. YouTube.com/Off the Ball on Facebook and indeed on Twitter as well at Off the Ball. And we are live on OTB Sports Euro 2020 show with Paddy Power's Save Our Game, donating €10,000 to Irish football for every goal England scored at the Euro. So England have more opportunities to add to that kitty tonight against the Czech Republic, and of course that goal by Raheem Sterling against Croatia put €10,000 in the kitty already. Over the coming couple of weeks we'll be joined by plenty of Euros legends and football insiders, journalists from inside the camps as well. Daniel Harris will be with us very shortly on this morning's show to talk England ahead of that game against the Czechs this evening. Also joined by a different member of Team Off the Ball every single day. We haven't yet had a second appearance by anyone, but we decided to welcome back Phil Egan for his second appearance. Good morning, Phil.
Good morning, how are you doing?
Keeping well. Phil, this is a glorious morning, not just because of the lovely weather, and believe me, that drive up from Monaghan to Dublin this morning was glorious, but Denmark are into the last 16 of the Euros, and I think we're all supporting Denmark at this point.
Yeah, I think you're obviously, for people that are listening they can't see, you're obviously wearing red to... It's your ode to Denmark and that performance last night. Actually, I had picked Denmark as a dark horse. Now, obviously, like the tournament, I mean, the opening weekend for Denmark was horrific, and luckily Christian Eriksen survived, and you could see the emotion in the Belgium game, and that seemed to be missing a bit last night. But then when Damsgaard scored, they found their spark, and it was a very impressive display. And here Denmark are into the last 16 now, and first time it's actually ever happened at the Euros where a team has lost their opening two games and qualified as a group runner-up. So now they have that game against Wales, and obviously Irish fans are well aware of what it takes to play against Wales and Denmark, and I'd say both sides are looking at each other thinking we can beat you. So they'd be both thinking they can reach a quarter-final here.
It was one of those games last night, the pair of games in that group, the Belgium game, of course, against Finland, and Denmark then thrashing Russia. But Rory Smith of the New York Times summed it up quite well on Twitter. He says, you can hate VAR and you can hate the format of the Euros, but as a pure minute of drama, Belgium scoring, Denmark celebrating, Belgium not scoring, Denmark not celebrating, Russia getting a penalty, Denmark really not celebrating. That is exquisite. I mean, the flicking back and forth was what the Euros and what the group stages are really all about.
Yeah, and the beauty of as well, obviously the game being in Copenhagen, you had that crowd noise, the cheer, when rumours came through that Belgium had scored. So the Danish fans start cheering. I actually flicked, when it went to 2-0 to Denmark, I thought, right, I'm going to just have a quick flick at Belgium, because I had obviously watched the first half of Denmark, and I then went over to see the highlights of the first half of the Belgium game, and game went as I thought it would, where Finland were sitting in trying to get the draw. Belgium had picked quite a strong team. Lukaku was obviously playing, but they weren't playing with much pace, but eventually you thought they'd get the breakthrough. Then Lukaku scores, and by the way, I know it was ruled out for offside. It's a brilliant goal, because his touch has always been questioned. Kevin De Bruyne absolutely pings it at him, kills it, puts it in the bottom corner. I'm thinking, right, that's it, it's done. Denmark, you're on your way into the last 16. Then you see that it's coming up as a goal check. Even when I saw it the first time, I was like, that's still onside. I mean, that's going to be given. But then the longer it goes on, then the more you think this isn't going to be given. Then I go back to the Denmark game. Vestergaard gives away a penalty, and I'm starting to think, no, this isn't going to happen, is it? But thankfully it all worked out.
It was just, incredible. And like, I was kind of sceptical about this whole, some third place teams getting through. And I saw Gary Lineker tweeting during the match yesterday. He goes, this fourth third place teams idea just takes all jeopardy and excitement out of the group stage, really needs a rethink from UEFA. And then someone tweeted him and says, completely disagree, I would say this means a lot less dead rubber contests, which makes almost all the games exciting. UEFA would do well to continue this format. And Gary Lineker replied and said, that's a fair point. People don't know what to think about this whole thing, but I had my mind changed last night, because last night was actually really exciting.
Yeah, but also as well, like, this is a problem that has been around for a while now. You see it in the Champions League as well, where minnows get beaten badly and people say there's no point in having them. And then the UEFA Conference League gets brought in, and people say, well, that's a waste of a competition. But smaller teams and smaller clubs need to be able to, they want to compete or try and have a go at taking on the best teams. It's the only way they're going to improve. So you can't just decide that. People might think, well, North Macedonia, what did they bring to it? Okay, they didn't win a game, but they scored a couple of goals. Goran Pandev got his send-off. And there's more than just winning. There's loads of elite teams that would have gone to the Euros thinking they're going to win the tournament that mightn't even get beyond the quarter-final stage. That is just the way sport works, that not everyone can win, but for some, they deserve the opportunity to compete. And so I don't really buy into it. I know people think that some of these games are dead rubbers, and you start off with 24 teams and basically you're playing 3 rounds of group games just to get rid of 8 teams. But we've seen some really good football so far. Yeah,
there's storylines that these, like Finland's first major tournament, and yet they're still not technically out of it, but looks unlikely that they'll progress on their 3 points. But yeah, as you said, there's all these stories. Like the goal last night from Andreas Christensen as well is worth a mention. I mean, look, it's one of those goals that if you scored it in 5-a-side, you would just take off your boots, walk off the court, regardless of whether it's 10 minutes into your hour, and just say, lads, I'm away home. That was mic drop moment. Like Christensen, when the ball is rolling towards him, I'm thinking, don't shoot, because they'd missed the 2 chances in the build-up. But this tournament has been a cracker for some serious goals.
Yeah, but also as well, the thing is, when it's coming towards him, he has so much time to think about it, and when it's coming towards you, you're just thinking, just get your foot through it properly. Don't go for unbelievable power, because if you get the technique right, then you can generate the power through that anyway. And he's just hit it so sweet. I'd say as soon as he hit it, he knew it was a good strike. And yeah, that was it then. You knew it was done and dusted. And obviously they got the 4th goal to round things off nicely. But yeah, he's had a really good second half of the season. And I know he picked up an injury towards the end of Chelsea's campaign, and then he came back in, and he obviously came on in the Champions League final. But yeah, a player that's really benefited from Thomas Tuchel taking over at Chelsea. And this was a guy that had come back from a loan spell at Germany and started to get a run in the team, picked up a few injuries, and people wondered, was he good enough? But he also suits that three-man defence. But it was just the atmosphere as well made it brilliant. The scenes at the end where we all thought they were going to FaceTime Christian Eriksen, but they were actually just live score trying to see what had the full-time whistle gone between Finland and Belgium.
Footballers are just like football fans, I guess, at the end of it all. You made the point on Twitter, Phil, that like this Denmark, as you said earlier, the Denmark and Wales game, I mean, both of these teams will fancy themselves to get to a quarter-finals, because maybe Wales will be a bit more tired. And I know we heard Aaron Ramsey talking after their game against Italy that, look, I don't remember the last time I played 3 games in a week like that, but it's going to be a cracking game because both teams fancy themselves.
Yeah, and also you're taking Denmark out of Copenhagen now. You wonder how that's going to work out, because obviously having the home crowd and a full house for the last couple of games has been definitely of benefit to them. But maybe it might be a bad thing for them to get out of Copenhagen, given all that's gone on in this tournament for them, that a change of scenery might not be a bad thing. That's it as well, though. I just think the fact that Wales are set up, that they don't concede many goals. Denmark are obviously have tweaked things. Damsgaard his goal was excellent as well, the opener last night, and he is seen now as the man that's got to provide that spark now that Christian Eriksen's not in the team. So it's set up as one that it's going to be like the odd goal you think is going to win it. Wouldn't be surprised if it goes to extra time, that kind of game.
The Group C then, like, it was a bit more of a damp squib yesterday, but the Dutch, again, impressive, albeit against North Macedonia, who already were out. But couple that with the win for Austria against Ukraine means the two of them progress. But the Dutch, nobody fancied the Dutch heading into this tournament. A lot of bad things were said about Frank de Boer and his management. But again, yesterday, Gini Wijnaldum was just excellent. Memphis Depay again, and Dumfries as well. This is a Dutch team that I can't work out, because defensively they're without Virgil van Dijk. They still have questions to be asked in terms of the goals they're conceding. But, I mean, how far can they go?
I think you're looking at quarter-final at best. I think when they face better teams. I think even before this tournament, obviously Frank de Boer has plenty of critics, but it's a nice group. And, once they got over that first game where they beat Ukraine, things were set up nicely for them. And yeah, I think it was a nice enough group for them that when they do face a better team, they'll probably be found wanting. And in particular, I think defensively, and I'd have question marks over the goalkeeper as well.
I can't wait to see I can't wait to see Italy come up against one of the top teams, but it's Austria in the next round. Like, they're not going to be tested there, are they?
No, well, they'll be tested in the sense that Austria will sit in and it'll be up to Italy to try and break them down. And you can imagine Italy have a lot of the ball. We know they play with great intensity, and you would imagine they'll prevail. And then you're looking at the prospect of Italy against Belgium.
Yeah, like
that's tasty.
I was doing my wall chart last night, acting like the big child that I am, and filling out my wall chart, and it just copped to me in my head, right? Italy and Belgium in a quarter final. This is not something I expected this early, and yet it's still the last eight of a European Championship. But what a cracking fixture that is! I don't know if you can call that one, because Italy will be favourites going into it. But I mean, the way Lukaku's playing and the way De Bruyne has come back into this team from injury, I mean, it's a hard one to call. Yeah,
but it's an absolute cracker of a game. But look, it mightn't happen, but everything points towards it happening. And you know, we were on last week with Paddy Agnew, and he was just saying you won't know how good Italy are until they face one of the big boys, because they haven't played them. So we don't know how good Italy could be, but Belgium would definitely be a winnable game for Italy, where, you know, they might concede, but they definitely fancy their chances of getting a few goals against Belgium, because that three-man defence is definitely Belgium's weak point. But they've so much attacking talent, they can get away with it against most teams. And you mentioned Lukaku, he's just in unbelievable form. I know it was quite a boring pick, but I picked him as my Golden Boot winner. He's on 3, obviously that's the joint lead at the moment. You'd be thinking maybe you'd probably want 6, maybe, to be guaranteed of finishing top of that chart.
Yeah, there's Ronaldo and Patrick Schick and Gino Wijnaldum as well, on 3 goals, which is quite impressive. Obviously assists come into it. I think Ronaldo has 1 assist and the rest don't have any, so he leads at the moment on a technicality. We'll get to Daniel Harris in just a moment, Phil, but I've got the rolling all-stars / team of the tournament, which has been changed. This was yesterday's team. Now, Szczesny in goals for Poland, the back 4 of Dumfries, Netherlands, centre-back pairing of Joe Rodon for Wales and Kieran Tierney of Scotland, and Robin Gosens for Germany after that. 10 out of 10 performance against Portugal at left wing back. Look, this is a 4-4-2. It's for the benefits of my graph, I've gone with the 4-4-2. And the midfield, then Aaron Ramsey of Wales. You've got in the middle Shaqiri for Switzerland after his 2-goal haul against Turkey. Billy Gilmore of Scotland. Unfortunately,
got to get him out of that team before the rest.
Yeah, I cursed him. That's a fair point. Berardi of Italy on the left wing, because I just left him in. We need an Italian in there, and Lukaku and Ronaldo up front. I've made 4 changes, Phil, in the centre of defence and in the centre of the midfield. So right through the spine of my team. So out in the defence comes Kieran Tierney, and in comes David Alaba, who was previously in this team, but he's wormed his way back in. And Kieran Tierney is out for Victor Lindelof. I know Sweden didn't play yesterday, but Adrian Barry convinced me with his argument in favour of Victor Lindelof, and he has played well, to be fair, so he deserves this stint in this 11. And in the midfield, then the centre of midfield, Shaqiri out. He's done nothing wrong, but Kevin De Bruyne has come in. He was ruthless in that Belgium win yesterday, yet again. And out comes Billy Gilmore, of course, because, as you said, Phil, the rest of the players would have to self-isolate if we didn't take him out. And Gino Wijnaldum has come back into the team. He was in there previously. Another 2 goals for him for the Netherlands. What do you make of that 11?
Yeah, like Alaba, he did it. I thought he was really good yesterday in how he basically took Yarmolenko out of the game, especially in the first half, and Ukraine couldn't get going, and once Austria got the lead, then they were able to just sit in, and the 2 centre halves for Austria had a really comfortable afternoon. I was really disappointed with Ukraine. A lot of people had tipped them as one of the sides to watch. Pretty much all the teams that were tipped as dark horses, the likes of Ukraine, Turkey. Anyone else that I'm missing?
Ukraine, Turkey, Denmark, I guess, were dark horses as well.
Yeah, well, Denmark have got through, and I said, I think
Turkey were a shocking shout, by the way. I called Turkey as dark horses, but I'll hold my hands up.
Yeah.
Some people got it badly wrong, and I was one of them.
But Austria, Alaba did a very good job. He's obviously the star man in that team. He was playing more as on the left hand side yesterday, but you could play him anywhere. You could play him in midfield, and he'll do whatever job you want him to do. And Austria have a lot of really solid Bundesliga players. I mean, the Bundesliga in Germany, not the Austrian one. But I was disappointed with Arnautovic. He didn't really do much. He's kind of coming back to fitness. Obviously, he'd missed the game for that ban that he got as well. But I feel he missed one real glorious opportunity. But he's always just a player that's baffled me. Where on his day, we saw when David Moyes used him as a striker at West Ham, he was unbelievable. And actually, when he was leaving, it was a big blow for West Ham. But he wasn't great yesterday. Just kind of walking around and not doing much.
Yeah, sulking around the pitch. We might move on to England then. England need to beat the Czechs, of course, to finish top of Group D tonight and set up a Wembley last 16 tie with the team that finished second in that group, comprising France, Germany, Portugal and Hungary. What a game that would be. Otherwise, they're likely to go to Copenhagen to face the team to finish second out of Sweden, Slovakia, Spain and Poland. So either way, it's going to be a cracker. Delighted to welcome to the show this morning Daniel Harris, football journalist. Morning, Daniel.
Hello.
Daniel, Harry Kane seems to be the man on everyone's lips heading into this game tonight, and Gareth Southgate kind of said look, he's going to start regardless, and yet the situation has changed since that full time against Scotland, and England now are guaranteed of a place in the next round. So are you surprised by all the talk around Harry Kane? He hasn't played well, but at the same time it's only 2 games in.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not surprised by it, partly just because people like to talk. So there'll always be something to say and something to complain about. But I think it is fair that people are wondering what's going on with Kane, because he doesn't look fit. Because I think you have to say there are a couple of things that are wrong with this England team. And Harry Kane not being fit is one of them. And that's not the same as the team not functioning properly, so not making chances for him. And I think that is a much bigger problem, because ultimately, even if Harry Kane isn't that fit, if you make chances for him, he will score them, and also he will get fitter. So I don't think that Kane is in any danger of being dropped. If there was another poor performance tonight and then a really difficult game coming up next, Southgate might think about it. But I think Gareth Southgate, as we keep seeing, is a cautious manager, a cautious man. And there's no way that he's going to leave Harry Kane out, even if he thought about it. I can't imagine there's going to come a situation where England are playing a knockout match in a tournament and Harry Kane gets dropped. Because I also think that if you were Gareth Southgate, you won't want to invite the attention that dropping the captain causes, and also probably invite the blame. Gary Lineker was just saying the other day that when he got taken off by Graham Taylor in Euro 92, he became the martyr, and Graham Taylor got all the blame for what happened, whereas if he'd stayed on, he wouldn't have escaped in that way. And I think that self-preservation will also be at the back of Gareth Southgate's mind, even if he's not something that he's dealing with in a cognitive sense. Dropping Harry Kane is a massive deal and invites all sorts of aggravation that no one's going to want.
There's all this talk today as well that Manchester City are targeting Kane in a €100 million or £1 million bid. I think, of course, Spurs and Daniel Levy want more than that. But is that the type of thing that's likely to play on Harry Kane's mind as this tournament progresses? He seems to have the temperament, though, to I guess be able to cope with transfer rumours and being in the shop window throughout the tournament.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's more than a transfer rumour, because for Harry Kane, it's not about if he's going to get his move to Man City or whatever. It's about, is he going to get the opportunity to fulfil every bit of potential that he has to get the most out of his talent and to get the most out of his career? Like, that's really the question that we're asking here, because we don't know how long his ankles are going to hold up for, but any footballer can get injured at any time. And, I mean, so it is quite an acute issue. But I'm absolutely certain that Harry Kane will go out on the pitch and get on with it without allowing it to affect him, because he doesn't seem like that kind of individual. And I think one of the things that marks out footballers as quite different from the rest of us is their ability to compartmentalise, their ability to cope with pressure. Like, think about what it must take for your team to get a penalty in a knockout tie and to be the bloke that says, yeah, I want to do that, rather than, oh man, do I have to? I guess I've got to. Oh, gosh, I'm absolutely bricking it here. And that whole internal monologue that any normal human being would go through. These guys don't have that mentality. They have the mentality that they want to embrace pressure, that they don't see it as pressure. They see it as a privilege and all the rest of it. And those kind of people probably aren't going to get too fussed about some transfer rumours, even if they do really want that move. And I'm absolutely certain that Harry Kane wants that move. But what Harry Kane should also be doing, really, is firing whoever told him it was a good idea to sign that 6 or 7 year deal or whatever it was. I mean, it's absolute lunacy. Like, when I saw the deal, I thought, it's absolutely insane that he signed that. He must have a get out. And I'm not an agent. It's not my job to advise footballers. And I know that that's what you would do. And the fact that his agent did not do that is absolutely mind-boggling.
Do you reckon there's a chance, though, as he's sitting in England camp and he's seen all the rumours about managers, let alone his own move away, but Spurs still haven't got a manager. He surely, you know the way footballers are, they probably make fun of each other. They might be saying, Harry, you're getting Paulo Fonseca with an Jose Mourinho swap deal. Then that's gone. Antonio Conte, that's gone. Gattuso, that didn't happen. If Spurs can't get their house in order in terms of a manager, surely he must be thinking, geez, I don't know if I'm going to get this move away, because Daniel Levy isn't exactly in control right now of what he's trying to do.
I mean, I don't know if you're Harry Kane, if you're walking around with like the barnet and the beard, people probably aren't going to focus on the fact that your football club doesn't have a manager, because there's much easier targets if they're going to start razzing you like that. But I'm absolutely sure that he doesn't want to stay at Spurs, because, as you say, why would he? And he will obviously be noting the absolute mess that's been made of Spurs appointing or not appointing this next manager. Because, I mean, even the guys that they've tried to appoint, does anyone really get excited by playing for them, by watching their football? I don't think so. And that's the problem with Spurs, is that with some of the clubs with whom Spurs want to compete, there's always the idea that they can prestige and spend their way out of any trouble that they get themselves into. Chelsea do it by spending, Man City do it by spending, United do it with a bit of spending and some prestige. Spurs don't have that. And so it was always going to be a problem that what happens when Pochettino leaves, because so much of what Spurs had when they were good was predicated specifically, precisely, uniquely, individually on what Pochettino brought. They then replaced Pochettino with someone who could not be less like Pochettino, which rarely works, really, because what you end up with is a whole bunch of players who are used to a certain mentality and who are of a certain description and need to be agitated to perform in a certain way. And I think this is what happens in football clubs often, where you have people making decisions who don't know anything about football. I mean, if you look at Spurs under Daniel Levy, it's been a long slew of disappointment, apart from when he accidentally appointed someone good in Pochettino. But he's not someone that is consistently appointing quality. And that's what happens, because Daniel Levy isn't... I hate the phrase football man, because it's kind of that whole, like, why hasn't Paul Pogba, like, tackled that player there with his hair? Exactly. Like, that kind of whole style of, like, Graham Souness. And, I mean, he'd be obviously the most obvious person who you would finger for that kind of behaviour. But when you have football people making football decisions, you are going to have better decisions made, and you might want some business people as well taking care of the business side. But knowing about football is an expertise, and Daniel Levy doesn't have it. And therefore, the people that you think he might appoint, I mean, you see it at Man United with Ed Woodward as well. They go from Fergie to Moyes to Van Gaal to Mourinho to Solskjaer. That's a whole load of different stuff, because the people that are making those ludicrous decisions are people that don't know anything about football, and what you see is what happens, and that is why it happens. So, yeah, to cut a long answer shorter, I'm absolutely certain that Harry Kane is pissed off at the moment with what's going on at Tottenham.
He might take it out on the Czechs tonight. In terms of the starting 11, obviously Gareth Southgate can change things up. Is he going to change that midfield? I mean, there's been calls for Jude Bellingham. Why not give him a chance?
I mean, he's going to have to now, because Mason Mount can't play. So I think that if you look at the competitions in which England have been successful, there's been a couple of times, I say successful, obviously this is an extremely qualified statement, where England have not shamed themselves. In 1986 and 1990, both of those times, they had to make quite significant changes. In 90, it was more of a formation as much of a personnel thing. But in 86, it was also a personnel thing. And they made it at the last second, basically. And things worked out all right for them in the end. And what is noticeable watching England play is that the player on the ball often only has one option. And part of that is a cohesion thing, that they haven't played together in a settled way, in the way that the teams that do this best do, like France and Italy, who you can just see everyone knows what they're doing, everyone knows what they're meant to do. Part of it is almost beyond Gareth Southgate's control. Like Phil Foden broke into the squad late doors, so he won't have played with all these players a lot. Luke Shaw also has only just broken into the squad, and he probably is the best left back that England have. So I think what Southgate needs to do is to be a bit more sensible, but also a bit more imaginative in the teams he plays, and be a bit less cautious. If you have Calvin Phillips and Declan Rice in the same team, we can all understand why England would do that. Their defence is dodgy. And so if you put people in front of it, it becomes a bit more stodgy and a bit harder to get through. But then obviously competing against that is the fact that England's best players are all attackers. And you want to get some attackers into the team. And if you have attackers in the team, you can keep the ball, and the ball's also at the other end, thereby protecting your dicky defence, also by perhaps performing the lost art of scoring a goal. And whichever way you slice it, 1 goal from 2 games against Croatia and Scotland is an embarrassment as far as the England camp, I guess we have to call it, should be concerned. So if you're asking me what I would do, I guess I would keep Luke Shaw, because I think he's England's best attacking left back. But in any event, Chilwell's not available anymore now, so that's taking him out of the equation. Then in midfield, I think what I would have done was I would have brought Bellingham in for Phillips, but then I would have done that in the beginning for the first game, because again, I think that although England probably think that they're not peaking right now, the tournament that they think they're going to try and have a serious shot at winning is the next tournament. There's always a next tournament. Portugal won the last one of these. Who expected that to happen? England have the players that are good enough to beat any team, and the only way that they're going to do that, they will not win this tournament by holding midfield players and hoping to score from set pieces and counters. It won't happen. That's not how any team really goes about winning a tournament, and the quality in this tournament is too high, I think, for you to get away with that. England do, though, have the players to compete in midfield, to try and retain possession. And so what I would do is, as I said, I would play Bellingham instead of Phillips. I think that might happen now. I think what we might see maybe is Bellingham and Henderson playing instead of Mount and Phillips, and Southgate will kind of get out of the difficult decision by playing 2 number 8s and a number 6, rather than playing a number 6, a number 8 and a number 10 maybe. So I think he'll play Henderson and Bellingham. I would play Bellingham and Grealish, or Bellingham and Foden, and then play another winger, because I think what we're seeing with Foden is that when he plays for Man City, he plays on the left most of the time, but he's not really playing on the left. The fullback's getting forward from the left, and he's moving into midfield, because the thing about Foden is, for all the brilliant running with the ball and the strength and the beauty of him in possession, he's a goal scorer, first of all, and he's not a winger. So I don't think England should be asking him to play like that. I think that what I'd also be thinking about is, if you've got a team that don't look that familiar with each other, and let's be real, England look like they've never clapped eyes on each other before, the way that they're playing at the moment, I'd be thinking about, if Luke Shaw plays on the left, if you put Marcus Rashford on the left as well, then you're getting a club partnership that might give you a bit more fluency and a bit more fluidity and a bit more cohesion and a bit more imagination and just a bit more not being crap than we've seen from England so far. So I do think that some changes are necessary, because I don't think the way that they're going about it is enabling them to extract the most from the players that they have. And I mean, just looking at the team they picked for the first game, even though they played all right in the first game, my overriding feeling was that there's absolutely no way that this is the best team you can make out of that squad. And I still don't think that.
Daniel, another man we're not talking about too much is Jaden Sancho. And I guess a 2-pronged question on him. So I guess, how close, or what are you hearing about this move to Manchester United that seems to be getting a little bit closer in terms of the player and the club agreeing terms? But also, B, why the hell is he not on the pitch for England at the moment? Because there's a lot of Bundesliga journalists who are scratching their heads wondering what this guy has to do to get into Gareth Southgate's team.
I think why he's not getting in the team to begin with is because Southgate is loyal to Raheem Sterling. You can understand that. I probably would have left him out the first game, because I felt like he wasn't in good form, and I've been looking to pick the players in form, so I probably would have picked Sancho for that one, because he'd finished the season well. Rashford had finished the season injured and playing badly. Sterling had finished the season playing badly. And ultimately, we're talking about a very short period of time, so if someone's in form, then you'd be thinking pretty carefully about getting him in the team. I think the reason he's not playing is because what Southgate's doing is he wants Foden in the team, and he wants a winger who can go on the outside with that. And he's staying loyal to Sterling. I think what Sancho might give you, though, is he gives you a playmaker, so that perhaps you can, if you're going to play, if Southgate decides to play Bellingham and Henderson, then I think he probably is a playmaker short. And in that circumstance, I think he should be thinking really hard about starting Sancho, because he's got then in Bellingham and Henderson, he's not got players who are that much of a goal threat, who are going to play the killer pass that's going to turn a defence, that's particularly a defence that's sitting deep, as there's a pretty good chance Czech Republic do. I don't know why Southgate hasn't picked him. I mean, my guess is that he's behind Sterling and Rashford, who are players that have done it for Southgate before. But as I said before, like some kind of imagination about picking the players, not just the players that have been good for you before, that the players that you think might be good at doing particular things that unlock a defence. And what Sancho's really good at is shifting the ball. His movement's really good. His touch is really good. His vision's really good. And I don't think that you're quite getting that off Sterling. In fact, I don't think you're getting anything near as good as that from Sterling in those particular aspects. So I think, and then to talk about Sanchez going to United, as far as the personal terms go, they sorted the personal terms out last summer, and United wouldn't pay the money, and they also wouldn't pay the money that they'd agreed they were going to pay. Whether they do or not this summer, I guess if you asked me if I was betting, I'd say they probably will, because they want him. Are they really going to have the humiliation of spending another summer pretending that they're going to buy the same player that they didn't buy last summer? And he's available for a bit less. And Joel Glazer needs to pretend he cares about winning trophies and appeasing fans for a little while. So that imperfect storm will probably make sure that deal gets over the line in the end. I don't think we'll see Sancho start tonight. But if I was an England supporter or playing for England even, and someone who wanted, if I was Harry Kane, I would probably want to see Sancho there, because the service that he's getting from the rest of them is not enough. And I don't think Sancho will, maybe it will be that Southgate will use the opportunity of Mount not being able to play to stick Grealish in there and have another creator in the team. Maybe that's what he'll do, but I wouldn't be at all surprised if that's what he didn't do.
Regardless of what he does do, it's never going to be the right call. If he plays somebody, they will say, why didn't you play this person? But one thing that's been quite apparent from the first two games, it's all very underwhelming. Like, we know this England squad, their strengths are in attack. Just have a go. It's there's no tempo to it. Maybe Henderson coming in would add a bit of tempo as well. I'm not everyone is Henderson's biggest fan, but he certainly injects tempo when he plays for Liverpool. And England's strengths are playing with pace, whereas it's slow and methodical. It's just very easy, as Scotland show, to defend against.
Absolutely, and when you say methodical, I don't even think there was any method. It was slow, but it didn't feel like they were building towards anything. And I think one of the things with England, Gareth Southgate actually, I said something quite wise before the first game, where he said, because basically no one thought that the team he picked for the first game was the team he was going to pick for the first game. And he said, look, like, if we win, then I pick the right. It's as though I pick the right team, and if we lose, it's as though I pick the wrong team. And actually, it's not as black and white as that. And I think he's right. I felt like he picked the wrong team for Croatia, but they won. Not he picked the right team and they won. And it felt like that was now looks like he's going to be picking teams that he thinks will win particular games, rather than what teams are usually doing at this point is just picking the same team. And I mean, even in the week before the Euros, France and Germany were playing friendlies. They weren't picking 4 players that weren't even in the squad. They're picking their first 11 because those players needed to get grooved. And Southgate, for reasons don't know, maybe not even known best to himself, I don't know, was picking Jesse Lingard and whoever else, because I don't know why. And it was just waste. And I know that players wanted a rest, but just to give like your first 11, like 45 minutes, whatever it is, playing together, seeing where the runs are, I think that might have been quite helpful. But now it's not solely about picking more attacking players and going for it, although that is a part of it. It's picking good combinations and where the players know what they're going to do. And I think one of the problems with England is that Declan Rice and Calvin Phillips are really taking 2 players to do what one should do. Because what England want is they want the physicality, the leadership, the running power, the mentality of Declan Rice, and the ball carrying also, but they want the passing of Calvin Phillips. And if you look at Italy, say, they've got all that in one player. They've just got Locatelli doing that. And that enables them to be a little bit more imaginative and a little bit more attacking further forward. And what England have is they're trying to find a way of making things work. Like, they don't really have a number 6 who can control the pace of a game. And what they really should be doing is trying to find a way around that. But actually, they're just not trying to find a way around that. They're just trying to put someone else in there to do that job. So it is about going for it, but it's also about picking players who blend well together and the players knowing what they want to do. Like in 2018, England were looking to score goals on the counter and score from set pieces, and it almost got them to the final. This team aren't like that, and they've got the scope to be so much better than that. But there doesn't seem to be a vision, and it doesn't even need to be that much more than a vision. It's like there's an idea amongst a lot of people that the way that attacking football works nowadays is coaches who say, when the ball's in square D7, you be there and you be there and you be there. That is one way of doing it. It is not the only way of doing it, but the players do need like broad instructions, a broad plan of what happens when the ball goes wide. Like, these are the players you should be supporting. These are the players who should be holding, or one of you sits, and work it out between you. And then you do also need the players to take some responsibility as well. I'm just not really sure that England have those players, or at least the players who might do that. I'm not sure that they're the ones that are getting picked. I'm not sure.
Just to tie up that Ben Chilwell and Mason Mount news as well, that you mentioned Daniel's statement in from the English FA within the last half an hour confirming that Ben Chilwell and Mason Mount must isolate up to and including next Monday, the 28th of June. This decision has been taken in consultation with Public Health England, confirmed with close contacts, of course, of Billy Gilmore after that positive COVID-19 test following last Friday's match. They say Chilwell and Mount will isolate and train individually in private areas at England's training base at St George's Park, with the rest of the squad returning there after tonight's fixture against Czech Republic at Wembley, and they're going to follow all the protocols. Interestingly, if England do win tonight, they win Group D, of course, and they'll play their last 16 tie next Tuesday, the 29th of June in London, so they would return for that game. But if they were to draw or lose tonight, England could potentially end up as runners-up in Group D, and that last 16 game would be in Copenhagen on the 28th of June, and that would rule out Mason Mount and Ben Chilwell, because they must isolate up to and including that date. So we'll see how that pans out tonight. But Daniel, just to talk about the reaction to the Scotland game, and I mean, we always kind of look on with interest to the English media during major tournaments and to see how it pans out. But was the reaction quite negative? I mean, this is hardly an Iceland or a penalty shootout exit or a Beckham on Simeone moment drawing with Scotland, but has it been a negative reaction?
I don't think it's exactly negative, but I mean, the performance was criticised. Like, I'm not going to lie, I don't really read the Sun very often or the tabs very often to know exactly what they're saying, but I think people are frustrated more than anything because they know that there's a really good team in these, and they know that team hasn't been found, and there's a concern that team isn't going to be found. I don't think that the team that Gareth Southgate has picked in either of these two games is good enough to start beating good teams in knockout stages. But there is a team there, and the question is whether he's going to find it. And I mean, it's sort of in a lot of areas been like, well, is he going to pick Jack Grealish or not? And to me, it's not about that. It's about maybe Grealish is in England's best team. I don't know. Like, maybe with Mason Mount gone, he might get into the midfield, but I think it's more complicated than that. If you look at Germany, for example, in midfield they've got Thomas Müller, then outside him they've got Joshua Kimmich, and in front of him they've got Serge Gnabry, and they've got Leon Goretzka, who's fit again now. Those lads all play for Bayern Munich. They play together all the time, and so the blend between them, the understanding between them, is going to be solid. And it doesn't feel like Gareth Southgate has nurtured that sufficiently with England, and it doesn't. You watch France play against Germany, you could see that they all knew what they were doing, that the way that they were finding space told you that these were players who played together a lot, and it feels like England don't have that, and they're not picking players who necessarily blend together, but they're picking players who they think might hide flaws elsewhere in the team. And that's where, as you said earlier, that Gareth Southgate needs to be a bit braver. And he needs to, because it's just rare. I mean, you saw it with Greece in 2004, but a team will win a trophy on the counter. It's just unlikely. You're going to need to dominate the ball in big games, because whoever wins this trophy, the quarterfinal, the semi-final and the final are likely to be hard games. And I think that's the reason why people are thinking, well, even though Italy have looked probably the best team we've seen so far, and certainly the most coherent team we've seen so far, you think, do you have the individuals to beat three really good teams one after the other? And they might have to play Portugal next, or the team that finishes third in that Portugal group. And to go and beat those teams 1, 2, 3, 4 seems unlikely. England and Portugal were funny, because they're the two teams that when I was looking at it before, they were the two teams I thought had the highest top level and with the individuals that would enable them to beat France. Because obviously France by far the best team, but in a tournament like this, it being by far the best team isn't always enough, because if you play another really good team, you play really well on a good day, then that could be enough for that team to lose. England and Portugal were the two teams I thought, with the individuals they have, they would be the ones that, if I was France, I'd be thinking would be potentially present the most difficult threat. Except their managers are giving them grief by not allowing them to go out and express that threat. And that's what it's going to take to beat those teams. And I think that, like, Italy will go out and they'll play against any team, and perhaps that will be enough to go and win those big games one after the other. But whoever it is going to have to produce, and one top level performance is probably not going to be enough, and it's about how well these teams play at not their top level, which will determine who wins maybe in the end. And that's why France will be the favourites. Not because if France turn up and play as well as they can for 3 or 4 games in a row, then forget about it. I mean, no one is likely to get even close to them if that happens. But the reason why I think France will win overall, and why most people think France will win overall, whatever terms they've thought about it in, is that if France turn up and play 6 or 7 out of 10, that's enough to beat most teams. And if other teams turn up and play 6, 7 out of 10, they haven't got a chance against France.
Like when you mention Portugal as well, Bruno Fernandes immediately comes to mind as someone who hasn't really lit up the tournament as of yet. Like from a, I know you run the United Rewind page on Twitter as well. So from a United perspective, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer and Kieran McKenna and Mike Phelan watching on at this tournament, like I guess Victor Lindelof has impressed. Scott McTominay is the leader we all thought he was in that Scottish team. Pogba's done okay so far, but Bruno seems to be quiet, I guess is the word to use.
Yeah, I think that he's not being given much of the ball by Portugal, and I think that one of the problems is an insoluble problem. Like, they don't have Cancelo. I think that's making a massive difference, because they don't have the width and the thrust that they get from him, and they don't have much in the way of wingers. I think one of the problems with this team is actually quite similar to what England are doing. Like, they're playing 2 holding midfield players. They're playing Danilo and Carvalho, and you don't need to do that, because if you play Bruno Fernandes, Bernardo Silva, and then one of those two, or Moutinho, then you're starting to have players who can outpass any team. So if you play Moutinho, then maybe you could play, or you play Bernardo Silva wide, so that he can then come and make a 4 in midfield, which against France you might need, because they play a diamond, and if they got 4 narrow, then you might well want 4 narrow as well. But I would say that Bruno Fernandes, it's not so much that he's not playing that well. I thought he didn't play that badly in the first game. He was poor in the second game. But you need to get him the ball, because one of the things about Bruno Fernandes is it's not just his performances that are consistent. It's what's the staggering thing about his consistency is the goal contributions, is making goals happen. And in order for him to make goals happen, you need to keep getting him the ball, because he will keep trying high tariff passes and shots, and he'll fail at them a lot, so because they're difficult. But eventually, if you keep getting him the ball and you keep giving him the scope to do that, then there's a very strong chance he will give you a goal scoring opportunity or a goal. And what they need to do is they need to get more of the ball, and the way to get more of the ball, I don't think, is to play 2 holding midfield players. It's to play 2 players who are good in possession, like Bruno Fernandes, because he can also play as an 8. So you could play Moutinho as a 6, and then you could play Fernandes and Bernardo Silva as 8s, or Bernardo Silva as an 8 and Fernandes as a 10, or Renato Sanchez as a 6, or Renato Sanchez as an 8 and then Bernardo Silva on the wing. Like, there are lots of different ways to get the most out of this Portugal squad, because it's a brilliant squad. And when you watch it, and when you look at the teams that get picked, you think that doesn't look like the best team you can make with this squad, and then you watch them play and you see it again. And they've got this game against France, and they've been lucky, really, that results have gone for them last night. So probably a 2-goal defeat to France, and they'll still be all right, but then have a difficult game next. But against France, to try and win that game, or to try and put in a performance in that game, if they play the players that they're playing in the formation that they're playing them, I think I'd be surprised if it happened. But like Gareth Southgate, the Portugal manager needs to make a decision. Is he gonna die on this hill of this is what I think, or is he going to look at the evidence he's seen so far and think, well, actually something different needs to be attempted because what's being done so far is nonsense?
Finally, Daniel, in a word, how far are England going to go in this tournament?
Goodness. I think they'll go through. After that, I guess, I think if they end up playing France next, they will lose. I think they've got a good chance of beating Portugal or Germany, but I don't trust Gareth Southgate, so I don't trust that he's going to pick the right team. Well, I would say if I see the team he picks tonight and it looks like a more sensible team, then I would back England to beat Germany. But if it's more of the same, then England will lose to whoever they play next, probably, if it's not that second place slot.
Daniel, great stuff this morning. Thanks, as always.
No worries, Az. See everyone. Have a good day.
That's Daniel Harris, of course, the football journalist there. Phil, I'll get your thoughts on tonight's 2 games in just a moment. Reminder, our OTB Sports Euro 2020 show is live with Paddy Power's Save Our Game, donating €10,000 to Irish football for every goal England scored at the Euro. So another opportunity to add to that kitty this evening. 2 big games for you today in the European Championships. I want to bring you a quick look now at some of the Paddy Power markets for those games. Have a look.
I'm joined by Emmett O'Keefe looking ahead to this Tuesday night game. It is Czech Republic taking on England. Now, we've a great incentive here in Paddy Power, and we've the Save Our Game campaign. Emmett, as you know, Paddy Power are paying $10,000 for every goal scored by England. Now, we are going to guarantee 100k. Sterling has only scored once. Surely we're hoping for a few goals in this match.
Yeah, I think we were hoping with kind of a pretty weak group for England that England would score a couple of goals in each match, and we could get a couple of donations. But England haven't obliged. Harry Kane has had a shot on target, so I think we're delighted to be able to guarantee 100k donation. So even if England don't find the net, we're guaranteeing that 100k donation. In terms of bet builder for the England game, a reminder to all Paddy Power customers that if you place a bet builder of 4 legs and one leg lets you down, we'll give you your money back as a free bet. So for our bet builder today, the first leg, unfortunately, it'll be under 2.5 goals. It's a bet that's won in both of England's matches and both the Czech Republic's matches, and I think we could see possibly a cagey affair with Czech Republic more than happy to take a point. One angle I do like though is Jack Grealish has been the most fouled player in the Premier League over the last couple of seasons. With him likely to start here, I think we could see a couple of fouls and cards for Czech Republic more than usual. And so I like over 1.5 Czech Republic cards as leg 2 of the bet builder. And then for leg 3, I like West Ham's midfielder Tomas Souček to be carded. He had 8 cards for West Ham last year, and he has 9 cards in 30 starts for the Czech Republic. And last but not least, I'll go for Harry Kane to have 2+ shots on target. I think after all that's happened, I think we'll see plenty of shots from Kane here. I don't think he's going to die wondering, and he possibly, with another bad performance, could lose his place. So I think we'll see a different Harry Kane from what we've seen before. So if all 4 of those legs of that bet builder click, that'll come in at just over 20-1. I think it'll give us some excitement on Tuesday evening.
Yeah, something to shout about. So those are Emma's thoughts on Czech Republic taking on England this Tuesday night.
Yes, those 2 games in Group D now this evening. England against the Czech Republic at Wembley, and of course Scotland taking on Croatia at Hampden Park in Glasgow. We have been doing our predictions, Phil, across the tournament, myself, Ger and Nathan, and here is the latest in our standings as things currently stand. So I've stretched my lead to 3 after yesterday. Ger opted for the left field bet of Finland to beat Belgium in yesterday's game. Of course it didn't happen. Myself and Nathan opted for the safe bet of Belgium to win that one. So I'm on 12 points, Ger on 9 and Nathan on 8. So he's closed the gap, Nathan, a bit on Ger. For tonight's games then, myself and Nathan have gone for a draw in Croatia against Scotland, and Ger has opted for Croatia. Of course a draw would suit neither of those teams, but Just think it'll be a cagey enough affair potentially this evening. And then England against Czech Republic. All three of us have gone for Gareth Southgate's England to win that one and top Group D. Phil, what are you thinking? Where are your thoughts lying ahead of tonight's two games?
Like, Scotland are the only team left in the tournament who haven't scored a goal. And you feel that they have to start well. If Croatia score first, then it's hard to see Scotland winning the game. Now, not to say that they couldn't score a goal. There's often, you see it where a team scores a goal and break their duck, and then all of a sudden the goals start to flow. But you would imagine he's going to stick with the two up front, Dykes and Shea Adams. Croatia's strength is in midfield, where they're probably going to own the ball, but the way Scotland play, they'll try and get around them with the wing backs, and they'll have no problem going direct. Just look at the kick-off against England the other night. First ball put up in the air, Lyndon Dykes smashes Luke Shaw. Give him a bit of a reminder just to say, you know, you're going to be in a game here. Absolutely nailed him in the ribs with his knee. Dykes will love that physical confrontation up against Dayan Lovren, who was very unlucky to concede a penalty in the last game. I thought it was a ridiculous decision. So I think if Scotland are going to score, it's probably going to have to be a pretty special goal, or else it's going to have to come from a set piece. But I don't know, maybe I'm just getting carried away in the emotion. I just have a feeling Scotland might do it tonight. Never qualified for the knockout stages of a major tournament. I think the fact that it's a night game at Hampden Park, the atmosphere, I know obviously it's not a full house, but I think they'll be well up for it. They just have to start well. None of this concede early. But the thing is, Croatia are quite cagey, that it's unlikely Croatia are going to start the game well. They're going to just put the feelers out there, see what Scotland are made of, and then grow into it. But Scotland, if they can just have a go with them in the first 20 minutes, maybe get that goal, give them something to hang on to and play in the counter-attack, who knows, it could be a special night for them.
Yeah, Flower of Scotland, an evening game at Hampden Park with a knockout phase at stake. That's going to be a cracking game this evening. But Phil, thanks as always this morning for your good work as always.
Thank you.
Great stuff. Phil Egan there of Team Off the Ball. And if you missed any of today's Euro 2020 show, of course we'll have the podcast up in the usual places. The OTB Sports app, it's on otbsports.com as well, and you can also watch back the full episode, youtube.com/off the ball. Also we'll have plenty of clips in the usual places on our Twitter and Instagram at Off the Ball, myself on Twitter at ShaneHannon01 as well. I'll be back tomorrow Wednesday morning, 4 games tomorrow for you. Group E comes to a conclusion. Slovakia, Spain at 5 o'clock in Seville. At the same time, Sweden taking on Poland in St. Petersburg. And then Group F, that's going to be a cracker tomorrow night at 8 o'clock in Munich. Germany against Hungary. And at the same time in Budapest, Portugal taking on France. So we'll look forward to all of that tomorrow on the show in the company of Nathan Murphy. So same time, same place tomorrow morning. Have a good one. Enjoy.
Football on Off the Ball.
With Paddy Power's Save Our Game. A cane brace will bag 20k for Irish football. Gamble responsibly. Gambling